Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sterling edition of Poland Daily Travel, your favorite travel show about Poland, I hope. And with me in the studio is the brilliant and effervescent and sartorially elegant, as usual, Nicholas, no relation, Richardson. Nicholas, how are you today?
Fine. Well, thank you for inviting me yet again.
It's my pleasure.
My pleasure to be here.
It's not our first rodeo, is it?
It's not our, as you always say, it's not our first rodeo.
No. We're going to do, in this series in the studio, we're going to be talking to a couple of other guests. We're going to have Guy Pinsent, who has appeared on my talk show
Indeed.
a few times, and the illustrious Craig Smith, both longtime residents
In fact, I
of
remember
Yeah.
when Craig first arrived in Warsaw.
Oh, you've
I
known
think
each
his,
other that long?
his first day, I seem to remember meeting him in the Marriott Hotel.
Is that right?
In the
So-
lobby bar. Yeah, I can
In
even
the
remember, I can even remember
yeah.
what he was wearing. I mean, just kind of spooky, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Because he was probably the only man in Warsaw in October in those days wearing training shoes and shorts. But anyway.
He was wearing training shoes and
shorts, yeah.
Do you remember what color they were?
Well, I can't remember what colour they were now, actually.
No,
but he'd
good.
just come in from Los Angeles
Good,
or
because
somewhere warm.
I was starting to worry
Yes, yes, yes. But, you know, I find that people...
about your proclivities.
No, they're not proclivities.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, it was just noticeable because obviously
nothing wrong
not
with that.
many other people in that on that Sunday, I think it was a Sunday actually, were actually wearing shorts in central Warsaw. But of course, nobody else had probably just come off the plane from Los Angeles. So.
And this was before the Vietnam War. This was
a long time ago, yes.
This was that was the year Goldfinger came out, I believe.
It was the year Goldfinger came out, yes.
No,
I just got
it
back
wasn't.
from filming it, yes.
It wasn't. No, listen.
Yes.
This program and this little segment, I wanted to we're going to be talking about experiences of traveling to
course.
Poland and in Poland with Guy and then with Craig, and they have a lot to say, so that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. But what about your first impressions because of Warsaw and of Poland? Because I see on the internet a lot people putting their first impressions of Poland, and almost inevitably, it's just them doing stuff like drinking coffee and go, hey, they have coffee.
Yes.
Look, they have vegan food. Wow. And then there's a picture of them eating or dancing, but there's not much about the actual history or anything that sets this apart, coming to Poland, sets it apart from anywhere else where you might be able to drink coffee and take pictures of yourself doing it.
Of course.
I think traveling, to me anyway, having been a few places, a fair few, and lived in a few countries, and that was just last year.
Yeah,
No, I'm joking.
I know you are.
Yeah, just kidding.
But I don't want to give lull you to false sense of security, so when you joke, I will not laugh. Sorry.
What?
No, never mind.
Okay, I'm not paying you then. So
No,
I'm
well,
not paying you anyway.
Say business as usual.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yes,
You're not getting
I'm
paid.
here on my own time. Yes.
Well, there's no hope now.
There's absolutely no hope at all.
I did promise you that
You did.
Jack Benny.
You did
20s
say
what is-
there may be a cup of coffee in it.
Who's Jack Benny? People are going to be going.
He's
Anybody who's
he's an American.
under 80 years old.
He's obviously American.
Yeah, he's a famous comedian.
So your question was, yes.
If you know comedy, you would know.
First impressions. Well, I remember actually my very first impression. Well, it wasn't actually technically my first visit to Warsaw, but when I arrived to sort of take up employment here, and it was in October, Sunday afternoon. I got on the airplane from England, and it arrived as it was just dusk was falling, rain was falling, and I arrived at this and it was not the airport we have now. It was the previous manifestation of the airport, so it's rather.
It's more like an airfield than an airport.
Well, it was actually not. I'd seen the previous version, which definitely was more like an airfield. This was sort of the
in-between version.
The in-between, and I thought, and I arrived and I got my way through the immigration and so forth, collected my suitcases, found a taxi, got myself to the Victoria Hotel, and looked around, and eventually got myself to the dining room, which was a Sunday night. So I was the only person eating there, and I looked around and I thought to myself, what have I done?
What have I got myself into?
When is the next plane back?
Yeah.
But I sort of survived that day, and then the next day.
This was just in the 90s, not the 1940s.
No, this
right?
was.
It was only the 90s.
It was only the 90s, but I mean, the thing that many people will not appreciate is if you come to Warsaw today, the skyline is wholly different as it was in the 90s. I mean, a lot of the big buildings in the centre weren't actually there.
And there's actually food.
And there was a food. It was
There are
very
actual
nice food.
restaurants.
Very nice food in the hotel. And the next day, the challenge was finding.
I mean, now there's a lot of choices. Back then, not so many
and
choices.
the next day the challenge was finding my way to the office, which I found my way to the office eventually, because in typical fashion.
That was the law office that you
It
were
was
going
the
to
law office in
work
those days. Yeah, Baker and McKenzie, a very well-known international law firm.
Yeah.
And I was just struck by how, in a funny sort of how different things were. It was very close. So people were quite excited, people in the office, that they could telephone and order for pizza, and the pizza was delivered. I mean, things that we had taken for granted for a long time were, of course, relatively new here. But people were very friendly and very helpful. But you just realised that it was slightly, a lot of things I had taken for granted, even simple things like getting money out of a machine in the wall, were not possible here at that stage.
Yeah.
If you went to get money out on a plastic card, which you could do, you went to a bank, and it was fantastic. You queued up, and then this transaction occupied 5 or 6 people as they took your card and looked at it, and eventually you got your money. And it's actually quite fascinating. And there was one, in those days, there was one machine, a hole in the wall, at the American Express office in Krakowskie Przedmieście, which worked. Although drawing cash on an American Express card is not a financially sensible operation.
It used to be actually to get money at American Express. Yeah.
But it worked. But the funny thing is, I was years ago at the British Ambassador's place here, in Bagatella, before they got rid of this wonderful house. I was invited to something by mistake, as it turned out, but I went. And Michael Palin, who had been filming his Europe series, and he was talking about it, and he'd been filming something in Poland. I got into a chat with him, and I was saying, when you film these things, do you film them all at once, or do you travel? He said, well, when we were younger, we used to go away for 2 months at a time. He said, now we're all old, we tend to fly home at the weekends. and he was asking me how long I'd been.
He doesn't stay on set.
And he was asking me how long I'd been in Poland. We'd be chatting away. And he said, you must have seen lots of changes, because this was, I'd been here about 16 years at that point. And I said, yes, the physical landscape is different. A lot of the buildings that you see now.
What sort of year were you talking to him?
This must have been about 10 years ago. Not about 8 years ago, sorry.
Yeah, because he was...
Yes, it was just after he'd made that series about Poland and this part of the world. Yeah. And I said, a lot of the things we now take for granted are not available. And
That's a good place to stop.
No, we can't just, because I've got to finish the story. No, we've got to, no, because this is good. And I said, things that you just take for granted, like machines where you get money out of the wall. And then I to my horror, I heard myself saying, and you tell that to young folk today and they don't believe it, which of course is the punchline from the Four Yorkshiremen sketch.
The Yorkshireman sketch.
But of course, he must have heard it millions of times, but because we were in the British Ambassador's house, and because we were both at the same Oxford College, obviously not at the same time, he sort of burst out laughing.
What college? Brasenose.
Brasenose, yeah. So
also the College of Nicholas Richardson and
Michael Palin.
Michael Palin and William Golding.
William Golding and Field Marshal Haig and David Cameron.
Excellent. That's a good place to stop. Stay tuned for the next exciting episode where we will talk more about Poland and traveling to Poland and traveling in Poland today with our guest, Guy Pinsent. See you next time.